And we're live. Hello and welcome, everyone. Again, it's time for another really exciting, really exciting as usual episode of IT Career in Australia channel. And today's discussion is about hallucination in AI and can we really trust it? So buzzing topic as usual, if you don't put AI in your the title, it's not relevant anymore. So it's all about AI these days. So we're right on the top of the hype. So make sure to join our speakers today as we dive into the risk and challenges of AI-generated hallucination, where a system produce inaccurate or misleading information. And can we really trust the AI for some critical decision in areas like healthcare, finance, autonomous systems? So this discussion will explore the underlying causes, potential solution, and what it means for the future of AI development and deployment. So please say hi in the comments and let us know where you're joining us from. And, don't forget, introduce yourself in the comments and join our conversation with your questions and comments as well. So as long as you're staying on the topic, please. I'm Jana Martins. If you forgot for any reasons, I'm here every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time with various experts from my network talking about all the things IT career, job search, and in and out of tech industry in Australia. So we're streaming on LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you on watching us on LinkedIn, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and vice versa. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, on the YouTube, make sure to find me on LinkedIn and also join my meetup group, especially if you're in Melbourne, because in Melbourne we have a face-to-face event as well. So another one coming in on the 17th of November. So, and I always encourage you to use these streams not only to learn some new information, but to network with people in the industry. Again, feel free to ask as many questions. James is here saying hi. Thank you for joining. Nothing will beat human touch. Here we go. Some opinions already. Mark is here. Thank you for joining us from New Zealand. Rahul is here. Thank you. Chris is here from Melbourne. Beautiful day in Melbourne, so it's like almost summer. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm gonna pass it on to our speakers to introduce themselves. Sarah, please, we'll start with you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Kaur. I'm a design thinking practitioner. What that really means is that I do user research. I ask hopefully good and deep questions to understand what people want when they talk about wanting to use AI, or what they want when they're talking about wanting to use AI to achieve a purpose. And I think a lot about the ethics and human and AI collaboration in that sense.
Perfect. Thank you. Over to Bahareh.
Thanks, Jana. Hello, everyone. I am Bahareh Nakisa. I'm a senior lecturer in applied AI and also course director of postgrad of AI at the School of Information Technology from Deakin University. I did my PhD in computer science in AI from QUT, and before joining Deakin, I worked as an AI scientist in industry. My research mainly focused on AI deep learning, human-machine interaction, and especially in human-machine teaming when human and AI collaborating together. And we are focusing on human performance, human emotion, and cognitive load. So how we can make this interaction and collaboration and teaming more effective and more efficient. So it's very important for different areas nowadays in high-stake environment like transportation, defense, space, and healthcare.
Perfect. There will be quite an interesting discussion today. So we're gonna dive in straight into the questions. And guys, if you have some questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll try to answer some questions from the audience as well. But I think the first question is obvious, what is AI hallucination and what are the key causes of it? So why it's actually happening? You think you're asking some simple questions sometimes and you're not getting the right answer at all. So Bahar, maybe we'll start with you. Like, what you see as the main causes of the hallucinations in AI?
Yeah, for sure. Essentially AI hallucination now, it's kind of like it's a negative terminology that we are using now, but it was not that negative. Essentially, it was used in computer vision in early 2000s for image reconstruction and creation. So it was very kind of like has positive meanings. But then when it turns to the language models for, translation or generating text, and because it starts generating the text that is kind of plausible, but at some stage giving the wrong information or false information. So it turns out as negative, carry the negative meaning. So it's kind of like producing some information that has nothing to do with inputs, but kind of like plausible, but it gives you the wrong or false information. There are a lot of different, I would say, reasons behind these AI hallucination from the maybe technical perspective. When we are working with the data and when we are working with the AI, always we are talking about the insufficient data, how much data we are feeding to the AI model, if we are giving the good quality of data. So if you are feeding incomplete and poor quality data to the AI model and asking model to generate something for us. So essentially when it does have incomplete information and you are pushing, because AI models like GPT, their task is to generate the next words or the phrases or the sequence of the words. So when doesn't have enough information, so then it start generating incorrect or false information, which we call them as hallucinating the information. And some of the AI models that we do have, they might overfeed it, so they are not learned, they are not trained on a good quality data or on a wide or diverse amount of data. So they are trained on a very specific data. So when you are feeding with the new data that is unseen or complex, so then AI model doesn't generate the correct answer. So that's why we call them as hallucination, because it doesn't have such good learning or training, which is kind of like related to the how we are designing or putting the architecture of the AI model. So it's not only about the data, but also the design of the AI model. But interestingly, in these area nowadays, everyone's talking about the AI hallucination. We have to apply some safeguard filters on the AI models to reduce the hallucination. But sometimes they go the other side. So applying too much, restrictive filtering can cause even hallucination, because you are restricting the AI model in a way that it doesn't have, such information. So then it will end up, generating something that might be repetitive, doesn't carry those relevant information. And it's kind of like you are creating some AI or some answer that is not relevant to the text or to the query of the user. But there are a lot of different aspects that we can, it might not be, we don't have time to cover all of them. But essentially, yeah, it's all around the AI model designs and the data, and then how we are putting all together, how we are applying the filters. We should create a kind of like a balance between what we do, and it's all about what level of knowledge do we have, so how we are building an AI team. But I'll pass to Sarah, because I'm pretty sure that she will cover this part around from the design perspective.
Thanks, Bahar.
I heard some opinion that AI kind of doesn't have a differentiate between creativity and hallucination. So hallucination for AI, it's the creativity. So basically, if it's not hallucinating, it's not creative. So is it, Sarah, is it sort of, is it the idea? Or?
I think so. I think if like my position is that it's really hard, if not impossible, to eliminate hallucinations. So we got to work with what we have, and what we have more control of in the general sense than how a model is working. I think we've got more control of how we use it and how we use our own kind of mental faculties to interact with it. So I don't know if anyone remembers, but a few months ago, there was a really big article floating around. It was basically, saying something like, is AI the biggest bullshit artist of all? And I just thought it was hilarious because my question is like, who goes to an LLM expecting the truth to come out? So there's always a bit of a bullshit like detector that I think we need to kind of cultivate. But if we lean into the generative and creative aspects of LLMs, I think we can actually kind of look at really beautiful use cases where they complement us. They kind of take what we think we know and are able to speculate alongside us to give us new or novel ideas. I think as long as we're not seeking the truth, as long as we are interpreting the outputs, we can actually work with it in a really creative way.
That's actually a really good point, like, because I never really go to ChatGPT, then I just kind of something that I just can Google. I usually go to like ChatGPT, then I don't know, I want to create a post or I want to create a template or something around this. So I never really go and ask something that I usually normally ask Google. That's why I never actually have a trouble with AI hallucination, probably for that reason. But I guess why the AI never says like just I don't know. if it thinks that the answer is wrong, why it just simply doesn't say like I don't know?
I think they do. I think sometimes they do say I don't know. I reckon like 2 years ago, they weren't really able to say what they didn't know. But I was looking at this question and I did a little experiment in GPT 4.0 as well as Claude in Sonnet. And I was like, hey, can you tell me what basically causes you to hallucinate? And it came up with some pretty good, I guess, examples or cases where it's able to actually tell you. It's probably not great where I'm looking at a specific new concept. So something that Bahareh mentioned. It's not really great if you want to have a blended kind of model of creative and factual information. And it's not super good yet at reasoning where it has to solve a complex problem by going step by step by step. So that's the kind of field of emerging research that we are coming into. But I think actually just even the ability that some of these leading models have to answer just that question itself and educate the user as you're interacting with it, that's probably better than just, I don't know. Like, I was pretty impressed, but I don't know. What do you think, Bahareh?
When we say why AI, doesn't say, I don't know, maybe I would think from the AI architecture, perspective, because what we do have the GPT models, they are based on the transformers, right? So it's essentially focusing on taking the input, can be text or any other type of data, and then they do have the attention mechanism. Maybe I don't want to go far deep into the technical part of it, but essentially these AI model like GPT focusing on generating new words or the sequence of the words based on the pattern of the data that they have trained on. So when we say the transformer architecture and then the attention mechanism, we are putting them together, essentially these architectures, to generate the next word or predict the next word. So whether it is true or not, GPT like models, they don't know. They don't have this understanding of, or true understanding of, as we do in a way that humans do. So it's different. So that's why they would never say, I don't know. They would generate. Their task is to generate the text, but maybe the new version of those GPT-4o or any other parts are the kind of like those safeguard or the confidence scoring that they are putting on top of those models. If the model is generating something that is plausible, but it's wrong, so it does give you the low confidence score, and then it turns out that, okay, so I'm not sure. Can you give me a kind of like start getting some feedback from the human? But essentially, fundamentally, they are following the same approach, but how we are treating them or how we are putting the safeguards or kind of like the filters, applying more other, techniques to make sure that we are reducing the hallucination, because this is one of the approach that we can reduce the hallucination. If we push the AI models to say, I don't know, then it will kind of like in the back end, maybe it's generating those texts, but as a user, we don't see, because we have, they put one other filter in front. It's generating the low confidence score. So the result that is generated, it is not correct. So they may check it with the external trusted, database. And then if the data is, the output is not correct, then it will, give you the answer that I don't know. So this is a kind of like the way how we are putting those architecture together that end up, reducing those hallucination, but different approach can be considered, I believe.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Sarah, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was actually going to say, like, can we complement those things that are going on in the background? And I notice there's a comment in the background around like it's kind of black boxy. I know there's so many. Yeah, there's so many evaluation tools that we have access to, and low confidence scores are just one of the metrics. But I wonder if anyone has seen models or interfaces that actually give some of that feedback back to the user, so the user has a bit more information around how to interpret the output. I haven't seen any myself, at least that are kind of for consumer, but wondering if anyone else has.
I think you can ask just ChatGPT, like, why did you come up with that decision? And it's supposed to give you some reasoning. But again, like, is that reasoning is actually what's going on? Is it reasoning just based again on other data?
It's really hard to say, Yana, because validating those output is really hard. Depends on if you are targeting in a specific, area, and we do have access to some database. Let's say consider that healthcare, any specific area in healthcare. So we do have those database, and the valid or the true information is there, so we can compare. So any data or any output that is generated from the AI model, then we can validate it with the RAG plus human expert. But if it's not there, it's really hard to validate whether the generated output is hallucinated or it's true. So that's why we don't know the answer. It's really hard to answer this question, I believe.
Yeah, Mark is actually saying, I asked ChatGPT a question reasonably complicated. The answer it gave me was clearly wrong. My response was, you're wrong, you have missed this. And the response was, yes, you're correct. And then it took what I had said and applied it to the next response. So I was happy it was learning. So
if it's learning, even, you can pull it, you can mislead. This is one of the way that you can maybe kind of like, we can use it as a prompt injection. So just to mislead and, giving the misinformation to the AI and getting some harmful, answers. So it might be one of the other way that we can get around the safeguards and the filters that they are putting. So to get some more information or hijacking the information. So whatever you say to the GPT, you say, yeah, you're right, and then start generating something else for you.
Yeah,
I wonder if I can do a little bit of a swerve, right? And encourage us to think about the applications of Gen AI when hallucinations or things that we can't prove are true are actually quite good. So those use cases where we don't need to have the information coming back being verified. An example that we are seeing more and more adoption of in the design community is the use of generative AI personas. So, like an avatar of a type of user based on demographic information and other attributes. I think because one of the strengths is that there's just so much data that's been trained. So you can kind of ask it questions from the perspective. You can kind of ask the LLM to take on a persona and test your ideas for products or features with them. And one of the most useful or valuable applications I've seen is is trying to get their ideas around what could go right or what could go wrong for people with, say, accessibility needs, for people with different backgrounds. And you may not always, as a designer or a product team, have access or the resources to talk to those diverse community of users. And I think it's pretty wonderful that even if it is a hallucination or it's built on probabilistic answers, through careful prompts, we can actually get it to generate ideas that we may not have thought of that actually help us build kind of more guardrails into the products that we're developing. So I think when we start to look at that kind of cycle, it's more virtuous than trying to always box it in for something that it's inherently built to do.
Yeah, so you're not taking it as a truth, and you're not taking it as like, proper market research, but it's a great idea about what you can actually ask people in the future as well. And that's why, like, even if it's make something up, it's probably something, yeah, exactly, that something maybe we just didn't even think about. And so, yeah, again, that creativity and hallucination sort of mixture that could be quite useful compared to, yeah, exactly, like asking the things that we can ask Google anyway. And you already touched on, I actually want to ask this question. We talk about the accuracy. So a lot of people mentioning that the AI accuracy is directly tied to the quality of data, but then we're also talking about that creativity component. So is it true that if your data is perfect, the AI answer always be perfect, or that's not quite the right argument?
Yeah, maybe I would say always when we are talking about the AI, we are talking about the getting good quality of data. So always we say good AI comes with good data. So it's not all about the getting a vast amount of data from the AI perspective. It's all about the getting a good quality and diverse data. But this is not the only or the only true point that we can consider that is critical for having a accurate AI model. There are a lot of different factors that we need to consider. Essentially, when we are talking about the AI model, we have to consider the AI design. So how we are designing a good architecture of the model that can recognize the pattern that from the data that is being trained on. So because what we know is that the GPT models they are trying to handle the contextual information from the data that we get. So then if we are giving them a good data, but then the model is overfitted or it is not well trained, then it will lead to getting a wrong answer, or it can misinterpret the data because it didn't train well on the different type of data. So then when it comes to the new data or unseen or complex queries, then it can lead to getting a wrong information or the wrong answer. So and that getting the good quality of data is really a big question. What do we mean by good quality of data? So first of all, there is a language ambiguity in the data. So how we are covering that. So secondly, when we are talking about good quality of data, we are talking about the human is labeling or validating, verifying the data, right? But who is that when we are talking about the human? So then there is a lot of mistakes, inherent mistake that may happen into the data quality or the verification from the human side that would be inherent. So then when we pass them to the AI, so then it will, take over all those wrong or misinterpretation or those, contextual changes that happen. So then it will lead to getting a different result or answer. So it's a kind of like a very complex, I would say, answer. So it's not tied to only we say, yay, if we get the good quality of data, what do we mean first by the quality of data? Secondly, how we are putting those AI architecture together, what type of safeguards or filters we are applying to the AI models to make sure that we are getting a good result. And what do we mean by even the good result? Who is interpreting? Because it can be when we are putting AI in different contexts, we might get different answers. So one context may be reasonable, for another context might be not reasonable, right? So it's really varies and doesn't have maybe fixed or predefined measurement for these validation, that how we can measure the quality of AI models. So there are definitely metrics that we are using for AI validation. So like its accuracy, those mathematical metrics that we are using, but we don't get 100% accuracy for the models. And if you check, you'll see that we are applying different AI models or adopting, adjusting different AI models into different applications. And we are trying to build different AI architecture based on the data or the domains. So it's really challenging answer, I would say. Doesn't have any predefined or perfect answer for this. If we just focus on the data, we will get a good AI model.
Well, it'd be like a dream case, if you like a legal firm, you only put all the legal documentation and you think it's sweet, like all the answers will give you will be based on that, the
even if you send all those even if you send all those perfect high quality legal document to AI model and put the complex query, it can lead to getting the wrong information. Depends on how you are designing your AI model and how you are even giving the query to the AI model.
Yeah, it's true. I think Stanford did a report where they were looking at like specialist legal AI tools and were reporting up to 1 in 6 kind of returns that had hallucinations. So, and these are, built by really incredibly great people trained on specific legal data sets and documents. But I don't know if this is a more lighthearted kind of response, but it's top of mind today because I spent a good hour and a half wrestling with ChatGPT to try and get it to generate an image. And the image I wanted was of a middle-aged Indian woman, South Indian woman, sitting at a computer, and she's a computer engineer. I just needed a quick, shot of that. And so all of them that got created were just different versions of Miss Universe India sitting at a computer, and they were very perfect women by some standards. And I guess what I'm pointing to is that perfect is a very subjective, or I think in Bahar, your language was it's ambiguous language. And sometimes the idea of perfection or having humans that have labeled or data sets that are fed into it that have just one idea of good or perfect can have its own kind of diversity implications that are not so good. So it's so contextual, right? Do you want perfect and accurate every time? Or do you want it to understand how to produce a diversity of requirements? Because my God, normal women, it doesn't matter how many prompts you give. And, Dove, Dove beauty bars, they actually released this huge guide on how to get real beauty back. So how to prompt Gen AI models specifically to get more realistic portrayals of women. And I was following that to the letter. And yeah, all of the 40-year-old ladies I was getting were just glowing teenagers. It was astounding.
Yeah, Dove is actually really good with all these campaigns. They've always been, pushing the different campaigns about the natural beauty. But that's, that's actually a really good point. So how we, where is that scale and what's it? And I think we're coming back to that use cases. Yeah, when we're talking about the hallucination, and exactly what you mentioned in the beginning, it could be a good and bad. So hallucination doesn't need to be something bad in AI context, where again, of course, if we go to legal cases or some medical applications, that's not that great. But again, it's finding the right use cases for the right AI models and things like that. And it's not just blaming the ChatGPT that it's just dumb and can't give you a name of 5 books that the most common one, give me a name of 5 books as a gift, and it just making up some book names that doesn't exist. And everyone
great idea.
Someone
should write that book. It sounds fascinating.
Exactly. So how good would it be if I would be choosing the title for the book? That would be a great, prompt, but maybe not as great prompt than I want to buy the book for the present tomorrow. So again, I think it's the use case as well. And I think one more area we want to sort of discuss as well, which is, we already, I guess, talking about it, but what is how the AI, AI hallucination different from human error? Yes, so we're already talking about the different use cases. So, and if we were comparing, human hallucination versus AI hallucination, so it sounds like a kind of 2 different concepts. Bahar, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, maybe in terms of the human hallucination or human error is a bit, it's all coming from the cognitive, understanding, because what we do as a human when we make a mistake, it's essentially coming from when we are tired, distracted, stressed. So it's all, about cognitive things, right? So it's kind of like a brain process information. So we are trying to, make up something, but when and all the information processing, it's coming from our brain. So when we are making some mistakes, essentially it's a kind of like a cognitive things. But when we are talking about the AI hallucination, it's a bit different, right? So AI make mistakes because of, they are not stressed or tired or those sort of things, right? So it's mainly about the generating something that is plausible, but it is wrong information because of, it can be a lot of different reasons. It can be because of poor quality of data, incomplete information, even the AI designs that is not correct, or the too much filters. So a lot of different reasons can be resulting having the AI hallucination. But also, as Sarah said, so it depends on the context, right? So sometimes AI hallucination would be fun because of, it can give us the creativity, but maybe the human doesn't have such creativity, right? So because from the GPT side, we can change or we can adjust the temperature, so to go with the randomness, creativity, which can result in having more creative and diverse output, or we can have very conservative information sticking to the training data. So then when we are talking about the human error, essentially human does have those such awareness about what they are sensing. So sometimes you are making some mistake, but you sense that something's not going right, and what did I do? Or maybe someone help you to get through. All right, so you did that big mistake. So then you'll get to go through those, maybe the mistakes, through the awareness, and then what would happen? You will try to correct the error or the mistakes that you are making. So you are trying to fix it. So then it will result into don't repeat those mistakes. But it doesn't happen to AI. So if we don't design it in that way, so of course we can learn from human, approach. But if you just consider LLM is just around the hallucination that we are talking about, mainly going through the LLM and GPT models, and that is only trying to generate the output for us. So it doesn't have any awareness of the error that they are making, because they don't have those understanding of what is true, what is wrong. Maybe they do have those newer version of the GPT. They have some contextual understanding, but it doesn't have those true understanding as human does. And also it doesn't have those understanding of that can correct itself by its own. So normally what they do, they put human in the loop to get feedback from the human. So then applying some filters, and then getting at the end of the day, they put a human as a in the loop. So human oversight to go through the generated output from the LLM, from the GPT models, and then getting the feedback from the human. So what is the best or preferred answer, or maybe verify or validate the response based on the context, of course. But maybe I would say those difference I can see from the human side. Human does have those abilities because of cognitive abilities that we have, and have these true understanding of what's going on, how it has to be changed, how it has to be corrected. But but AI doesn't have such level of understanding. Maybe this can be a kind of like a difference between AI and human as of now that we are talking.
It's a
But
16th of
how it's
November,
going,
2024.
exactly. How it's going forward, we don't know, because I'm working around the human-machine teaming and working around developing a mental model for AI agents. So how it can be how it can work with the human as another teammate. So how we can treat it as another person that has the reasoning and cognitive, processing, and how we can, trust each other. So it's all about the one of the parts that we are working is around the trust. So how we can trust AI and how AI can trust us in return. This is the kind of like a lot of parts going on. But right now, what we can say as of now, maybe there is a kind of like a difference between human and the AI models from the cognitive side of things.
I think Mark has a comment exactly about this trust. I'll just read it quickly. Ask Copilot how to remove the entire headlight enclosure in my car to replace a bulb. While I was following the instruction and removing half a dozen screws, I was constantly thinking, does it make sense? As opposed to following what it told me to do. Here we go. That's a good example of that trust. So it's you're not really like fully trusting it.
Yeah, or even calling on your intuition, right? Like, wait, is this right? And Bahareh, I love your point around the trust is a two-way relationship, because we would never talk about a one-way trust relationship when we're talking about human to human ones. So I think that's super fascinating. I know there's limits to how useful anthropomorphizing, Gen AI is, but I was thinking about the cognitive bias that can kick in when we are stressed and tired or overwhelmed. And sometimes when I am in that state, a lot of my output, like my verbal diarrhea, can kind of approximate ChatGPT. I'm just like, I don't know, I'll just like spew all the information that I have about this. I think this is what you're asking me, so I'm just going to say all the things. But one of the things that I've been enjoying seeing the development of is the ability for when I get feedback, it's often like, stop and think about this. And I'm seeing AI models now developing to basically stop and think about it. So scaling the inference time that they have. What happens when you don't prioritize an AI LLM giving you an instant response, but you give it time to generate a response, check its response, and actually kind of do a little bit of that self-learning feedback loop. So I really hope that we start to see more of that and can learn to be patient as well while the machine does stop to think.
Now we want everything instant these days, the instant answers that everyone, I guess, expectations. We have a few questions from the audience. We kind of touch on that. I think Sign mentioned that creativity slider that increase accuracy. Bahareh, you mentioned about it in ChatGPT, so you can put that. Some people call it temperature. But I think we already sort of covered it. So is there anything else to add about that creativity slider on ChatGPT, or is it basically just increasing the randomness of the answer?
Maybe from the technical point of view, I would say when we are talking about the randomness or creativity, so when we are talking about the essentially temperature as a hyperparameter that essentially we are adjusting. So if you are using OpenAI API, so temperature is one of the parameters that you have to set. So depends on the context that, let's say, if you want to go through the fiction, right, generating something, creative, so then you have to set it as high. And if you set it as low, so then based on the input data that you are feeding, so it will be more conservative and cautious. So sticking to the data that has been trained on, and not giving the random, not going through the random generation. So it might, it's a kind of like a balance, I would say. These parameter that we are talking is really critical in terms of what AI is generating, because if you are setting as too high, then it might, give more, it's gonna be very risky and not safe. So it will give you random answer, and it requires human to verify and validate everything. But if you set it as low, very low, then it might be safer, right? But depends on the context. But it might result in giving you repetitive answer because it doesn't have those such creativity anymore. So, and it doesn't, sometimes if you are working with ChatGPT, you'll see, you are just keep asking to generate more other answer or giving a kind of like different prompt. So if you're setting that temperature too low, then you get, those repetitive answer. It doesn't generate different diverse set of answer that you require. So it's a kind of like a very depends on the context, but this is one of the maybe the parameters that is very useful for creativity or sticking to the accuracy and being creating something conservative.
Makes sense. There's another question from Sion. I think we sort of covered that question as well. What is the process to unlearn the model when information gets absolute, like a legal area when the new laws are replacing earlier ones? So it's, I guess we're coming back to that having human in the loop. So I think we just discussed that AI just not unlearning everything, just as simple as it is.
Yeah, there is no kind of like level of unlearning, I would say, in the type of AI model, but there is a level of forgetting, What we do have as we are feeding the models more data, and if we are feeding the model with the wrong information, right? And then as we are, over the time feeding more data, because the model is learning based on the data that is feeding over the time. So, and this is one of the challenges or good things. So it depends on how we are thinking, but AI model does have the forgetting, aspect. So it forgets the information. Even if you are working with ChatGPT, you'll see that some of the information that you are asking at the beginning, and then at the end, if you are asking some question from the beginning, it doesn't remember, right? Because you are keep feeding the information, and it just, forget the recent, remember the recent ones, and forget the initial maybe the data. This is good and bad. We treat them as kind of like from the AI side, we don't treat it as a good metrics, but depends on the context. So we are working on AI models that should be robust, taking care of a model that is more generalizable, while it's getting the information from the user, processing it, and then giving the proper answer to the user, but still has to keep the important information, in the AI model. If it forgets those important information, then we have to keep, remembering, or we have to keep feeding those data to the AI model, which is a kind of like a challenge in the AI model. So this is one of the metrics that we are using when we are developing models for, let's say, personalized model for AI model. So how we can build a personalized AI model. So these forgetting is one of them. So, but there is no kind of like unlearning. There's forgetting, of course.
I was going to ask you, Bahar, building on that, is there a way for individualized, I suppose, fine-tuning of models that's available, where if it keeps giving you something based on incorrect information about yourself or about a law that's been replaced, like the equivalent where you can be like, no, until it actually kind of sticks?
I don't think that we don't have, it all goes back, I think, Sarah, to those true understanding, right? So AI doesn't have such true understanding what is wrong, what is right. So whatsoever you are feeding to the AI, it will learn. So it's a training data, so it will learn based on it. But when we are talking about the developing a personalized model, so one of the areas that we are working on is around that how we are understanding emotional state of the users, right? But emotion is different to different, my happiness might be different from you, but in a general, concept might be, there is a similarity between the, emotion or the happiness, as an example. But when we are talking about the personalized modeling, so how we can, develop a model that can learn my happiness that might be different from you, but it will, take the general concept of the happiness that is common between you and me, right? But if we train the AI model that is learning on Sarah's data, and when it comes to my data, to learn from my data, it may forget Sarah's data, right? So if it goes back to Sarah's, data again, say, oh, I don't know what's going on, right? So it's kind of like how we can keep the general information that is common across, entities, let's say peoples. And while it is, feeding or adjusting and adopting AI model to be trained on any, specific or one individual person, but it is not something that we can say that does have such understanding what's true, what is, wrong. So it's just go based on the information. But those human validation, and having the human oversight is something that we can, reduce, or giving more information to the AI model that, yeah, maybe this is the right one, or this is the wrong one. So, but as I discussed before, those human oversight also, it's a bit tricky, right? So who is the human expert? How we are, labeling the data, because this is subjective. So, and we are feeding that to AI. So it will, carry those subjective, assessment to the model training as well.
I'm cautious about the time, ladies. We already passed 50 minutes of our stream. Time flies when you're having fun. We have one more question from the audience. Maybe Sarah, like if you want to have, give the quick answer to this last one before we wrap up. Rahul is asking, given the potential for hallucination, how do you see the role of AI in making high-stake decisions such as healthcare or autonomous vehicles where accuracy is crucial?
It's a great question, and I think Bahar's kind of, quite strongly indicated my thoughts as well, which are keeping humans in the loop for critical decision making until one day we can actually put our faith into and really hand over trust into the outputs that are unverified, unaugmented with human review. Until then, I think celebrate Gen AI particularly, and other types of AI in the beautiful things that they can do really well. But I also wanted to, really drive home the point around human review and augmentation in critical areas of decision making. So there are examples where we are looking to use machine learning or AI to essentially replace what humans are doing, particularly where it is a repetitive task where humans can get tired and miss stuff. But often, if you've got someone who, let's say, it's someone who's looking down, and their job is looking down into a vat of chemicals that are being processed. And the chemicals, day after day, they're just being mixed in a huge vat. You've got a human, and then you've got a camera with an AI sensor, and they're both seeing the same thing. But because the human's been doing that thing for, 30, 40 years, they've seen that process. They use a lot of their embodied senses and lived experience and tacit knowledge that is not present yet in the data AI model. And sometimes they'll notice something that just feels like not quite right. It's a little bit off. Maybe it's frothing a bit differently. And perhaps the AI model has never seen that before. So back to Bahar's point about novel information, novel scenarios. And we cannot ever, in that kind of critical situation, completely relieve the human oversight. Some use cases, I think, are just too critical.
Yes, let's see what's, again, with October 2024, we can revisit in 10 years and see how far we went with the trusting AI and reducing hallucinations. But at this point, we just get to the most exciting part of this episode, and it's a virtual giveaway. Hey, hooray! So I'm gonna do the announcement for next week, and while I'm doing the announcement for next week, I will ask Sarah and Bahareh go through the comments and choose the person they're gonna have a virtual coffee chat with. And while you're doing this, I'll find my actual announcement for next week. So next week is the 23rd of October, Wednesday as usual. We're going to do live tech LinkedIn profiles, reviews, and feedback. So guys, if you're listening and you haven't sent your LinkedIn profile for review, so you still have a chance. So I think I still can accept about 2 more profiles. So please make sure to send me or email me your profile. So if you want to participate in the next Wednesday live tech LinkedIn profile review. So we'll look at your LinkedIn profile and we'll make some recommendations. And Ben and Jonathan will give just the usual, the general tips and tricks for the LinkedIn profile optimization. So, ladies, did you have a chance to choose your virtual coffee companions from the comments? Sarah?
I think this is like not the answer that you were really hoping for, but I just can't choose. So I instead would love to invite people to maybe find me on LinkedIn and reach out if you want to have a chat, because I've been loving the comments and the questions. They've been making me think as well. I've really enjoyed hearing the anecdotes coming up from people and people sharing their lived experience and experiments with it too. So yeah, happy to have a chat, and the best way to contact me is through LinkedIn.
Yeah, how did you pick any particular person? Maybe some comment really get your attention?
Maybe I can talk to Rahul.
Rahul, yeah. Yes, yeah, talking about the future of hallucination and some questions around healthcare and industry, the future. Rahul, make sure that I'm pretty sure we connected on LinkedIn, but if not, make sure you do so I can connect you to Bahareh. Thank you so much, everyone. So, Mark saying thank you for giving your time and share your thoughts. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you all. Minosha's here as well. Thank you guys for saying hi in the comments and watching us live today. So the replay will be available as usual on the YouTube channel. Usual stuff, subscribe, follow, come to my tech walk. You know what to do, so I don't need to repeat. And thank you again, ladies, for the conversation, some great insights, and hope to see you again. Thank you.